My friends, let us begin with the quiet truth that the soul's greatest strength is found in patience. For patience is not the barren emptiness of doing nothing, nor the dull silence of idle hours, but rather the noble art of waiting without panic, the inward courage of trusting that time itself is not your enemy but your ally. When a man is troubled by the thought that nothing moves as swiftly as he desires, he imagines that the world has conspired against him, that heaven has turned away its face, that his efforts have been wasted, yet it is not so. For the rhythm of existence does not yield to his hurried pulse, nor bend to his shallow impatience. The seasons obey no command of restless mortals. The sun rises at its own hour and sets at its appointed time. The tree brings forth fruit in its hidden order, and no shaking of the branches, no desperate tugging at the roots, can force the blossom before its moment. So too with the life of the spirit, the unfolding of hope, the arrival of good things. These are not purchased by feverish worry, but by the steadfast watch of those who wait without panic. Consider the sea. Its tides rise and fall with the moon, never late, never hurried, never persuaded by human anxiety, and yet, in their constancy, they carry ships across oceans and shape the very face of continents. Would you accuse the sea of being slow? Would you scold the tide for not arriving at the very instant you wish? No, for its timing is perfect, its patience is its power. And so it is with the soul that learns to rest without fear, that waits without agitation, that trusts the rhythm of the eternal more than the clamor of its own heartbeat. Yet patience is not passive, though it appears to those who do not understand as though it were weakness. On the contrary, patience is the highest discipline, the training of desire so that it does not tear itself to pieces with urgency. The strong man is not the one who can seize what lies before him with greedy hands, but the one who can stay his hand until the right hour, who can look upon what he longs for and still refrain. For he knows that grasping too early may spoil the very thing he seeks. A child who plucks the fruit before its ripening finds it bitter. A soul that rushes ahead of providence discovers its blessings unformed, its joys unready. But the patient heart, though it aches with longing, bows itself beneath the gentle burden of time, and by this very surrender receives the fullness of what it desires. You think it easy to wait. You imagine patience requires no strength. Try then to still the anxious flutter of your own spirit when hope seems delayed. Try to silence the inner voice that clamors, now, 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 and you will discover the hidden might required to hold fast in calm. The warrior who withstands a storm of arrows is no greater than the soul that withstands a storm of doubts, while waiting for the unseen to appear. Patience, therefore, is not the denial of desire but its purification. It takes the raw hunger of the heart and tempers it with wisdom, teaching it to distinguish between what is immediate and what is ultimate, between the shallow delight of snatching and the deep joy of receiving in season. The hurried soul seeks satisfaction as one who drinks sea water, never quenched, always thirsting, never satisfied. But the patient soul waits for the cool springs of truth, for the river that flows clear and fresh, and when it drinks, its thirst is truly eased. What foolishness it is, then, to think that panic brings results, that agitation produces blessing. Have you ever seen the farmer tearing at the stalks to make the grain grow faster? Have you ever seen him hurl his seed into the earth and then stamp his foot in anger because the harvest does not rise in a day? No, he knows the earth has its secret labor, that beneath the soil life stirs unseen, and his task is not to hurry but to trust, not to panic but to wait. And when the fields are white with grain, it is not his panic that bore the harvest but his patience, his willingness to endure the silence of waiting. There is a strange glory in waiting without panic, for it is a declaration of trust, that the universe is not chaos but order, that time is not cruelty but kindness, that behind the apparent slowness of events, there is a wisdom deeper than human planning. To wait without panic is to align yourself with that wisdom. To say, I will not be mastered by fear, I will not be tyrannized by the ticking of the clock, I will not bow to the false urgency that whispers in my ear. In that act you become free, free from the chains of restlessness, free from the slavery of instant gratification, free from the tyranny of your own impatience. And freedom is strength. The impatient man is a prisoner of every delay. The patient man is master even of long seasons, for he has made peace with time itself. Do not imagine that waiting without panic is mere passivity, as though one were sitting idly in a chair doing nothing. No, it is an active discipline, a shaping of the will, a training of the mind. It is like the musician who holds the pause between notes, knowing that the silence is part of the music, that without it the melody would lose its meaning. The untrained ear longs for continuous sound, but the wise ear cherishes the rest, the interval, the space between, for there the beauty is revealed. So it is with life. Those who demand unbroken action, unceasing arrival, are deaf to the subtle harmonies that patience discloses. To wait without panic is to tune yourself to that hidden music, to hear what others cannot, to perceive the pattern woven in silence. There is also a great humility in patience, for it requires us to acknowledge that we are not the masters of all things, that the universe does not bend to our frantic schedules, that the unfolding of events belongs not to our command, but to a larger design. Panic is pride, the arrogance of thinking that our timing is best, that our urgency is truth. Patience is humility, the recognition that there is more wisdom beyond us, that the eternal has set the stars in their courses and the seasons in their turning, and our part is not to rush the heavens, but to walk in harmony with them. This humility, far from weakness, is the gateway to peace, for the humble soul is content to trust, content to wait, content to rest, knowing it is held in hands stronger than its own. And so, patience becomes not a weary resignation, but a radiant strength, the quiet fire in the heart that says, I will not be shaken though the vision tarry, I will not be dismayed though the promise delays. I will not surrender to panic though all seems still. This is the soul's greatest strength, for in such waiting is born endurance, and in endurance is born character, and in character is born hope, a hope that does not fail. The impatient man exhausts himself with worry, burns himself with restlessness, corrodes himself with fear, and when the blessing finally arrives, he has no strength left to enjoy it. The patient man, waiting without panic, is steady, calm, watchful. When the blessing comes, he is ready, strong, grateful. He does not stagger beneath its weight, but carries it with joy. Yes, the soul's greatest strength is not in its frantic striving, but in its steadfast patience, in its ability to wait without panic, to rest without despair, to trust without fear. For the one who learns this art discovers that time is not an enemy to be conquered, but a companion to be trusted. That waiting is not emptiness, but fullness unrecognized. That patience is not weakness, but the very power by which the deepest desires are fulfilled. The treasures of life, my friends, are not to be snatched by restless hands, nor seized in frantic grasping, as though they were spoils scattered upon the earth for the quickest and most desperate to collect. No, they are like the fruit ripening in sunlight, slow, quiet, certain, and beyond the power of human haste. You may shake the tree in your frenzy, but the unready fruit will not sweeten at your demand. It will bruise and spoil in your hand, a bitter mockery of what might have been if only you had let it rest in its season. You may rush into the field before dawn, scouring for the harvest, but the earth will not yield to your impatience. The grain bows golden only when its hour has come, not before. So it is with every true treasure of life: joy, love, wisdom, peace, opportunity, fulfillment. All these come in their season, not by your anxious grasping, but by your willingness to wait for the ripening. And what folly it is to imagine that grasping secures more than waiting. For see the man who cannot rest until he has clutched at every passing delight, who seizes pleasure before it matures, who demands recognition before he has earned it, who covets riches before he has learned their burden. His hands are full, yes, but full of emptiness, full of husks that crumble to dust. He thought himself clever in grasping, but he has robbed himself of the very sweetness he desired. Consider again the orchard. The patient farmer who waits for the fruit to swell and ripen eats with satisfaction, while the impatient thief who snatches it green eats with soreness and regret. The treasures of life are not seized by the anxious, for anxiety blinds the eyes and hardens the heart, making one incapable of recognizing the gift even when it arrives. But those who can wait, those who can stand still beneath the sun and trust the slow work of time, they alone know the taste of ripened fruit, the fullness of treasures freely given. It is a paradox, is it not, that the more one clutches, the less one holds? For anxiety tightens the hand until nothing can remain within it. The anxious spirit is like a child scooping water from a stream. The harder it grasps, the faster the water slips through its fingers, until it has nothing left but wetness and despair. But the patient soul, who cups its hands gently and trusts the flow, gathers a drink that refreshes. So it is with treasures. Hold them too tightly, and they escape. Hold them with calm trust, and they abide. You think you must strive with desperation to obtain love. Then you will drive it away, for love flees before grasping hands. You think you must snatch opportunity as though it will vanish in an instant. Then you will stumble into ventures unready, and they will turn to ruin. But if you rest in faith, if you labor diligently without grasping, then love will come of its own accord, opportunity will unfold in its hour, and the treasures you thought forever beyond your reach will fall like ripe fruit into your waiting hands. Look also upon nature's example, for creation itself teaches this wisdom. The rivers carve valleys not by rushing in fury, but by flowing in constancy, year after year, never grasping, never panicked, yet accomplishing more than all the sudden torrents. The mountains rise not in a day but over ages, and their majesty endures precisely because they were not formed in haste. Even the stars themselves, burning in the heavens, reveal their light in steady rhythm. Some long delayed in their journey to us, yet their brilliance is no less for its patience. Shall we then, who are but fleeting mortals, imagine that we can compress the eternal rhythm into our short impatience? No, treasures kept by heaven for their season will not be hurried by your frenzy. But they will surely come to you when the appointed hour arrives. The anxious grasping of men often leads to sorrow. Think of the one who covets wealth so feverishly that he cheats, lies, and schemes, only to discover that the wealth he seized consumes him with fear, suspicion, and loneliness. He thought he had found treasure, but he only gathered chains. Or consider the one who demands honor before it is due, thrusting himself forward, clamoring for applause, but when the light shines upon him, it exposes his unpreparedness, and the shame is greater than the honor. He has seized too soon, and the fruit in his hand is rotten. Yet another strives for love with grasping intensity, demanding affection, clutching desperately to another's soul, until the very pressure of his grip drives love away. These are the sorrows of anxious grasping. The treasures turn to ash, the blessings spoiled in haste. But how different is the soul that waits, that trusts the season, that lives as the orchard lives, patient under the sun. Such a one may appear empty, handed to the world, mocked by the hurried and envied by none, but in time, when the fruit is ripe, he is the one who feasts in abundance. The treasures come to him unsummoned, like birds that rest upon a still hand, but flee from the hand that snatches. Peace crowns his days, not because he has seized it, but because it has come to him in its proper hour. Love dwells with him, not because he has demanded it, but because he has welcomed it with gentleness. Wisdom speaks to him, not because he has wrung it from the heavens, but because he has waited in silence for its voice. These are the riches of patience, the treasures of life arriving in season. It must be said, however, that waiting does not mean idleness. Just as the farmer does not sit in his house while the orchard ripens, but tends the soil, waters the roots, guards against pests, so too must we labor faithfully while waiting for treasures to come. But our labor must not become anxious grasping. The farmer does not pull at the blossoms to hasten the fruit. He simply does what he can in its time and leaves the rest to nature. So with us we work, we prepare, we guard our souls against bitterness and despair, but we do not grasp, We do not demand, we do not panic. And because we rest in this way, the treasures of life find us ready. For when they come, we are not frantic but composed, not fearful but joyful, not spoiled by haste but made whole by waiting. Think, too, on how the eternal teaches us through delay. If every treasure came at the moment we desired it, our hearts would grow shallow. Our gratitude would vanish, our wisdom would be stunted. It is in the waiting that the heart is stretched, in the delay that humility is born, in the silence that depth is formed. The treasure ripens not only in the world outside us, but in the soul within us. By the time it arrives, we ourselves have ripened to receive it. If it had come earlier, we would have spoiled it with our immaturity. This is why anxious grasping fails. Not only is the treasure unready, but so are we. Season must meet season. The fruit must be ripe, and the hand must be ready. Only patience brings these together. So let us not be deceived by the glitter of urgency, nor persuaded by the world's fevered race to seize and clutch at every passing thing. The treasures of life are not in the grasping, but in the receiving, not in the panic, but in the peace, not in the frantic hand, but in the patient heart. They come as fruit in sunlight, ripening in their hour, sweetening in their season, and when they fall into your hands, you will know they are gifts, not spoils, blessings, not plunder. The anxious will have worn themselves out in vain, but you, who waited, will feast in abundance. There is a rest, my friends, that the world does not understand, for it is not the drowsy stupor of sloth, nor the apathetic neglect of duty, nor the careless folding of hands while the fields go unplanted and the lamps burn low. No, true rest is not idleness, but a trusting stillness, a sacred confidence that what is meant will surely arrive. The man who imagines rest to be laziness has never tasted its power, for the lazy man sleeps in fear, knowing in his heart that he has neglected the task and abandoned the duty. But the soul at rest, though it may be still, is full of strength, for it has completed what it must and now surrenders the remainder to a higher hand. Rest, in its truest form, is not the absence of labor, but the presence of trust. It is not the empty silence of a wasted day, but the holy quiet of a soul anchored in confidence. Consider how the earth herself rests. Winter descends, the fields are bare, the trees stripped of their leaves, the air chilled with silence. To the unseeing eye, it looks like death, like barrenness, like wasted idleness. But is it death? No, beneath the soil roots deepen, seeds prepare, the hidden life gathers its strength, and in due time spring bursts forth with its abundance. The rest of the earth is not idleness but preparation, not waste but renewal. So too with us, when we rest in trusting stillness, it is not that life has halted, but that life is gathering itself, knitting together strength unseen, preparing for the hour when fruit will appear. The one who refuses such rest, who labors without ceasing, who never allows stillness, exhausts his very roots, drains the life from his own being, and when the season comes for harvest, he has no strength left to reap. But the one who embraces true rest rises refreshed, ready, strong. And note this, trusting stillness is not born of carelessness, but of confidence. To be still in the heart while the world clamors is to declare, I am not the master of every outcome. I am not the maker of every blessing. I am not the ruler of every hour. But I am in the care of one who is greater. Such stillness is not the defeat of effort, but its fulfillment. For what is the point of labor, if not to entrust it to a purpose beyond ourselves? The builder lays his stone, the farmer plants his seed, the mother nurtures her child, and then comes the moment when nothing more can be done by human hands. At that moment, rest is not neglect but faith. The builder rests in the strength of the stone, the farmer rests in the power of the soil and sun, the mother rests in the growth she cannot control. This is the pattern of life itself: labor joined to rest, action joined to trust, striving joined to surrender. But the anxious spirit, ignorant of this, despises rest. It labors long after its strength is gone. It worries even when nothing more can be done. It fears stillness as though stillness were failure. Yet what is gained by such endless unrest? The anxious spirit lies awake while the fields ripen without its watching. It paces while the stone stands firm without its fretting. It wrings its hands while the child grows by a mystery beyond its grasp. All this worry is wasted. All this agitation fruitless. The treasures of life do not arrive because of panic, nor do they delay because of trust. They come when they will come, in the season appointed. Resting in that truth is the only true peace. It is a hard lesson, for the world teaches otherwise. The world shouts, do more. Strive harder, never stop, never sleep, or else you will be left behind. And so men drive themselves into frenzy, their faces lined with care, their hands trembling with exhaustion, their souls thin and weary. They imagine they are strong, but their strength is brittle, for it is born not of confidence but of fear. They collapse at last, broken by their own ceaseless striving. But the soul that knows true rest stands unshaken. It works with diligence, yes, but when the day is done it sleeps in peace, saying, I have done what is mine. The rest is not mine to carry. That soul wakes refreshed, while the restless wake exhausted. Who then is stronger? The one who never rests or the one who rests in confidence? Rest, rightly understood, is an act of courage. To be still is to resist the lie that your worth is measured by endless motion, to defy the falsehood that blessing is seized by restless hands alone. It is to say, I will not be driven by fear of missing out. I will not be ruled by the clock's tyranny. I will not bow to the world's demand for endless hurry. It is courage to step aside from the race, to let the heart grow quiet, to trust that what is meant will not pass you by simply because you are at rest. Does the bird fear it will miss the dawn if it closes its eyes at dusk? No, it rests, and when the morning comes, it sings. Shall we, who are of greater worth than birds, tremble in fear that blessings will flee if we pause to rest? And here lies the secret. True rest is not inactivity, but receptivity. The soul at rest is like an open meadow, quiet but ready to receive the rain. The restless soul is like hard ground, trampled and cracked, unable to absorb the blessing even when it falls. How many gifts pass unseen because we are too agitated to notice them, too hurried to receive them, too anxious to recognize their arrival. Resting still, we become aware of what was always near us: the small joys, the gentle mercies, the quiet treasures that do not shout but whisper. In stillness we discover that the very things we strained to seize were coming to us all along, and in our panic we nearly missed them. Do not confuse rest with resignation. Resignation says, nothing will come, so I may as well be idle. Rest says, what is meant will surely come, so I may be still without fear. The one is despair, the other is faith. Despair makes the soul heavy, unwilling to rise even when opportunity knocks. Faithful rest makes the soul light, ready to embrace the gift the moment it arrives. The resigned man misses the harvest because he did not believe it would come. The resting man reaps it with joy because he trusted through the silence. This is the difference between idleness and true rest. The one robs, the other restores. In the end, what is meant for you will not require frantic grasping. It will not demand that you burn out your soul in ceaseless unrest. It will come in its hour, as surely as dawn follows night, as surely as spring follows winter. True rest is the confidence of this rhythm. The stillness that knows the sun does not need to be pulled into the sky. The flower does not need to be forced open by human hands. The fruit does not need to be demanded into sweetness. Rest is the faith that time itself carries your blessings toward you, and that when they arrive, they will be yours without panic. So let your heart learn stillness. Do what is given you to do, then rest. Strive where striving is needed, then rest. Plant, water, labor, then rest. And in the resting you will find strength, in the stillness you will find peace, in the trusting you will find treasures arriving in their season. For true rest is not idleness, but a holy confidence, a trusting stillness that stands like a tree by the waters, unmoved by storms, unshaken by delay, confident that what is meant will surely arrive.